Hello and welcome to Double Talk. I'm Mark Steffen. Joining me this week is City Councilor Greg Smith from the Las Cruces City Council, District 2.
Correct.
Our current Mayor Pro Tem. Thanks, Greg, for sitting in for Michael Mandel. And we're going to talk about things going on around the city, and should be an interesting half an hour. You've been on the City Council now, you would say, for about 8 years?
Six
Actually,
years. Yeah, this November it'll be 6.
6 years. And what made you decide to run for City Council?
Well, it was an interesting process. I didn't think I was going to run for political office, and then I found myself in the situation with being president of Downtown Las Cruces Partnership and a couple of other things. And I was actually chairing the Las Cruces Centennial Committee back in 2011 and leading up to 2012, which was the Centennial for Statehood. And I had a lot of interaction with the City Council, a lot of interaction with the city, and found a lot of people saying, you really need to run for the council. And I was like, well, maybe that's something I should do. So I ran and was elected, and it's been a good thing.
And, well, good to have you on board. Now, each councilor has their own district.
Correct.
And I guess, and all those districts combined form a vision for the city, hopefully a cohesive vision for the city. What is it?
Well, we have worked on a strategic plan that helps us look forward to how we're going to, what we're planning on. It's so much easier when questions come up if you're going to look at a plan and you say, okay, well, this fits in with what we said we wanted to do, as opposed to, oh, this sounds good. And so we sometimes have to modify our plans based on an opportunity that comes in or an idea that we hadn't heard about before. But for the most part, we're looking at our strategic plan and saying, how do we move forward in a way that makes sense? And so I think most of my colleagues on the council would agree that what we're looking at for our vision is how we take Las Cruces as it currently is, based on its history, based on what it currently has as assets, and how do we get to a modern city that's a 21st century city with the conveniences that people are saying they want here, with the health care and the assets that we want to have in place here. So getting from where we are, which is a pretty great place, to where we want to be, which has more amenities and more things going on, then what are the intermediate steps to get to those places?
Quality of life is one of the major
Quality
issues.
of life, we've started using the term quality of place. Because one of our industries is tourism. A lot of people come here because of the national monuments, because of our natural assets, because of the places that you can get to from here, and because we're at that crossroads of I-10 and I-25. So there are a lot of reasons why people come here, and we want to tap into that tourism industry even better than we already are doing now.
Now, I know the city tends to have like a 20-year plan. Over 20 years ago, I was doing a different television show. We had Brian Denmark on.
Yes.
And he was telling us about the 20-year plan at that point. Well, it's been 20-some-odd years. A lot of those things never happened, like the connector highway from Interstate 25 to Highway 70 behind a mountain. I don't know if that's still on the plan or not, but there's a lot of houses in the way now.
Well, some of those things are still talked about once in a while, but not so much as they have been in the past. So what we're looking at with that kind of thing, that really is more of a state highway kind of discussion. But we look at, well, okay, so what are we going to do with the art museum? What are we going to do with the Olympic pool? What are we going to do with roadways? What are we going to do with some of these other things that fit in with that? The convention center is certainly one of those things.
Well, speaking of roadways, the Water Street, Church Street reconversion, taking it from the racetrack roundy round to a two-way street from a one-way street. What's wrong with it the way it is now, and why do we need to change it?
We get a lot of those questions, and the reality is that at first, the idea was that they were going to turn downtown into a shopping center, a shopping mall, and there were going to be these large parking lots on the outside of it, and people were going to walk in. That never really worked, and basically it helped kill our downtown. And so as we came back to looking at how downtowns work and what helps people feel comfortable going to those places, we found that slower traffic and better access and more activity going on all the way around it was going to be more helpful to what we're trying to do. And so as we look at getting those things in place, the two-way street became part of the conversation as far as what we're going to do that. And I was looking at it as, well, you know, the one-way streets are functioning pretty well. It's not an immediate priority. We really need to get the plaza in place. We need to get parking structures in place. We need to get some of these other big pieces in place. But the tax increment development district legislation that we had, which allows us to get money from the city, from the county, and from the state portion had some strings attached that unfortunately people hadn't been keeping track of. And the reality was that the strings on that particular portion go specifically to Church and Water and some of the other streets in there. And it had to be used as debt service, and it had to be used by the end of, I think it's 2018. And so we had to do all of that with those streets, and basically, even though I didn't think it was a high priority to get those two streets converted from one-way to two-way, the reality is that if we didn't do it according to the time frame that was given to us from the state, then we would be in the situation where that money would simply go back to the state and we wouldn't be able to use it. And in the long term, we really do need those two streets to be two-way streets for access, for slower traffic, and for it to all operate the way it's supposed to downtown, and make sure that we're getting that vibrant downtown that we need.
Does that mean we're going to lose the roundabout on the north end of Main?
No, the roundabout's going to stay. The roundabout is sitting there configured the way it is, but it's got some bump outs because of the one-way streets right now, and those will be removed so that the two-way traffic can function in there. And really, there are a lot of roundabouts with more than 4 streets coming into them. Ours only has 4. They actually blocked off one street so that we wouldn't have 5. But basically, so if you come in, you can come in on Church, but you can also, once it's changed over, that bump out that's right there next to the Moose Lodge parking lot, that will be taken out, and you can then come out of the circle, the roundabout, onto Church when it's a two-way street. And the same thing over here with Water.
What's the time frame on that?
18 months.
From now?
From about a month ago or 2 months ago. Okay. So we're probably looking at 16 more months. The reality is that we could have done all of that in about a 9-month period, but I was one of the people saying we really need to make sure we're not overly burdening our downtown businesses and the people coming downtown to make sure they can still get access. So it's being phased in such a way that access can be maintained. They're also putting signs in place to let people know that there's still access to those businesses.
On a personal note, I just hope they're not going to put raised medians along.
No, there won't be. There will not be raised medians because most of that will be so narrow.
Yeah.
Actually, and that's part of what will help slow traffic down is when you're passing another car, even though you have plenty of room to do it, if you're passing another car but it feels close, you're going to slow down. That's a natural response. The other thing is that people feel more comfortable, they feel safer walking on the sidewalks, and the end result needs to be more people walking downtown.
Sure.
We're very social animals. We look and see other people moving around and we say, I want to be where those other people are. I want to see what's going on. And more people are comfortable walking if there's actually a parking. You know, we were talking about parking, and the reality is that we think cars parked everywhere doesn't always look nice, but the reality is to people walking on the sidewalk, that's a buffer. And that helps them feel comfortable and safe walking on the sidewalk. So there's actually that element to that that's going to be helpful.
How many lanes going north and south?
One each direction on each of those roads. Just like Main Street is now through the downtown area, there will be one street going north and one street going south on Water, and the same thing on Church.
And room for bike lanes?
Yes, bike lanes have been part of that conversation. We still are sort of hashing out what's going to be happening with, they've been talking about a diagonal reverse parking thing, which is sort of like the roundabout. A lot of people like, well, I haven't had to do that before. But with the reverse diagonal parking, the reality is that when we pull into a parking space, a diagonal parking space now, we pull in driving forward, but then we have to back out.
Into traffic.
Into traffic.
Right.
We also, if we're going to put things in our trunk, have to walk out into traffic to put things into our trunk. And if we have children or people who need assistance getting into the car door opens and they have to sort of walk out towards traffic to get in. If you've actually backed in to that, then opening your trunk is next to the sidewalk. Helping people into the car is actually coming towards the car from the sidewalk as opposed to coming out towards the street. So it's safer in a lot of ways, and when you're coming out, you're actually coming out where you can see traffic and pull out. So it's kind of like reversing the order of how we do something, and that is going to be a different change to how we think about it, but the reality is it will actually be safer. In the places where it has been done, a number of cities in the U.S. have done it. Places where it has been done, it's actually shown to be a lot safer.
Okay. Now, you mentioned a minute ago swimming pool.
Yes, sir.
Now, we have the city built what they call the Aquatic Center, which in reality is a giant kiddie pool. But there's been talk of an Olympic-sized pool,
Right.
which I think is a great idea for an aquatic center.
Absolutely.
Is that going to be a reality soon?
Yes, it will be. We had originally the plans for the aquatic center. It's sort of a misnomer to call it an aquatic center without the Olympic pool. And so that's always been a bug in a lot of people's ears about, well, why is it called an aquatic center when it doesn't have all the facilities that it should? It was originally intended to, and depending on who you talk to, the governor didn't come through with the money that he was supposed to come through with. That was Bill Richardson at that point. Or the city didn't plan properly. And I was one of the people arguing even then, before I was on the council, that we needed to have at least a 25-yard pool, if not a 50-meter pool, where people could swim laps, where people could compete, where people could play water polo, do a number of other things, and learn lessons, swimming lessons. And so we've been having that argument for a while, but the city simply did not have the money to do that. We have recently recycled a bond, so we had a bond that came due, came up for reassignment. And one of the things that we said is we need to go ahead and get that Olympic pool in. So it will be going in. The question is, will it eventually be covered? And covering it will require another $3.5 to $4 million. And so that was something we were hoping to get on a GO bond election for this November when we're having the other election. And that fell through. So I'm still hoping that we can at some point have a bond election to enclose the pool. But as it is currently, it's being designed so that the pool can be enclosed later, but at this point it will simply be an outdoor Olympic pool until it can be enclosed.
The university has two Olympic-sized pools, one indoors and one outdoors.
The indoor one is actually not technically an
Well, okay.
Olympic pool. It's a 25-yard pool.
Right.
The outdoor pool, you're absolutely correct, is an Olympic pool. It's 50 meters.
I learned to scuba dive in those pools.
Yeah.
And they also have seating on one side
Yes.
for competitions
Yes.
and just observation. Or will we have that too, some seating available?
Absolutely. Now that's part of the money that Senator Papin and some others put into this. They put $220,000 towards this effort so that we could use some of that money for stands, because even though this pool will be for lap swimming a good part of the time, it will be for swimming lessons a good part of the time, it will be for all kinds of recreational and educational experiences. It will also be a competition pool, and we have things like the Pecan Classic and the Suntan Classic that come to Las Cruces. We're also looking at regional and sectional meets that could come here, and in all of those, a lot of people come in from out of town, they bring their families, they
Sure.
want to stay places, go out to eat, and you basically have to have stands on the side of the pool so that people can watch those events.
How about diving platforms and diving boards?
Well, that's something that we had hoped we would be able to include. We're not able to include that at this point. Unfortunately, the university, and the university is very interested in us being able to do that, because the university currently does not have a pool that's quite deep enough for the high platform.
diving, yeah.
And so we have a diving program there. And so what we need to do is look at the high diving, or that situation, and hopefully we can help them out eventually. But at this point, the Olympic pool might be designed with a deep end.
Deep enough to accommodate
Deep enough
that.
to accommodate that. But ideally, that would be a separate diving well at some future point.
I think the university goes to 12 feet on the indoor pool.
Yeah, and I don't know technically what the requirements are. What I heard one point is that it's like half an inch shy on the outside pool, and just enough to disqualify it, because you're required to have a certain depth, and some of those things are just like immutable. You can't change them.
Right.
So,
well, listen, let's take a break.
Okay.
And we'll come back and talk more about the city, and as well as things going on around town this weekend.
Great.
All right, good job.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call Low Cost Airlines. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call now.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business. According to the secret war, banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get the secret war free. Call the number on your screen or visit online.
This is a national healthcare alert from the Health Hotline. If you, a family member, or a loved one suffers from knee pain and have Medicare as your primary insurance, we've got great news. You could qualify for a pain-relieving knee brace at little or no cost to you. Get free delivery, and all the paperwork is handled by our accredited suppliers at no charge to you. We also have other pain-relieving braces available for shoulder, ankle, and your back. Call the number on your screen right now to immediately receive a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost.
Hi, welcome back to Double Talk. Mark Steffen along with Greg Smith, City Councilor, District 2. And we mentioned earlier quality of place, quality of life. One of those things, it seems to me, is the new plaza downtown.
Absolutely.
Plaza de las Cruces.
Exactly. No, we had a lot of input on what the name should be for that, and we voted on it and got Plaza de las Cruces, which seems very appropriate and certainly very popular. And that was one of the things, both when I was working on the Downtown Las Cruces Partnership as well as on the City Council, we knew we needed a plaza. Back when St. Genevieve's Church used to be downtown, we had, there was a plaza. It belonged to the church. It's where the Bank of the West building is now. But there was a plaza downtown, and when that urban renewal thing happened and the church was torn down, we lost our plaza. So this is one of the things that's been a long time coming. I'm thrilled that we have it. It has a water feature, it has a stage, it's next to the Future Museum of Art, and great asset for our downtown.
Yeah, I think it's perfectly placed. And there's room for the food trucks to show up during
Well, they're very
occasions.
popular. Very
right,
popular.
and especially when the farmers market is there on a Wednesday evening.
Yep.
It's a very pleasant time out. The temperature is just right. And so if you haven't been to the plaza downtown, give it a shot. I think you'll like it. Now, you just mentioned the Art Museum.
Yes, sir.
The Las Cruces Museum of Modern Art is downtown in the old, what used to be a bank building, really.
Actually, it was the old White's Auto.
White's Auto.
That's
okay.
right.
And now, you just mentioned, it's going to be moving to where Municipal Court is now.
Correct.
That used to be a post office building for years and years.
People still call it the old post office
I still
building.
do myself, because I remember when it was a post office. Why is it moving?
Well, first of all, the municipal court is in a fabulous 1917, so it's actually celebrating 100 years this year. This fabulous historic structure, our municipal court is in that building, functioning in actually two spaces. Part of it's, we have a second courtroom in the old post office part, and we have the original first municipal courtroom in the original old federal courtroom that was upstairs from the post office. And they're limping along basically in those spaces because the building was built to the specifications of 1917. And we have modern expectations of courtrooms, and the air conditioning keeps breaking down. The ways that people move through the building are not current. And so we've known for a while, the City Council before I was on on the council knew that this had to change for the municipal court. The municipal court needed to get into a new building. But we hadn't put aside money to do that. We have money basically budgeted around 2021, I believe, for the municipal court to move. So that's still about 4 years away. But after it moves out, then the Museum of Art will be moving in.
But yeah, they really don't have enough room there. I saw in the heat of the summer, there was a line stretching outside and down the steps because there wasn't a room for the people to be standing in line inside. And people actually were being overcome by heat and had to be taken away by ambulance.
Not a good thing.
No, so a new municipal court, I think, will be a wonderful thing if we figure out where to put it.
Well, and that discussion is actually going on. So we do have that discussion happening. It might end up closer to where the District 3 court is in what was once the Alameda Junior High, and prior to that, the Las Cruces Union High School. So there might be an opportunity to locate the new municipal court closer to that court, or perhaps someplace else near the downtown. But that's absolutely being discussed. The other part of that, of course, is then once it's out, we will have the Museum of Art located in that building. That will be a much more interactive opportunity with the plaza. Currently we have fences, we have prisoners being brought out of vans and taken up the prisoner entrance. Next to the, well, what serves as a Sally Port at this point is not really, the old Sally Port is blocked off, but basically at this point it's not an ideal situation for both the court or for the plaza. And so what we hope to eventually be able to do is, or at least I think would make a lot of sense, is have a new entrance off of the plaza into an expanded building that includes the Museum of Art, our artist studios, perhaps some retail, perhaps a cafe, certainly public restrooms for the plaza. That has been a need. People have been complaining that we didn't include those. That was something that I was hoping we could have included from the start in the plaza. So a lot of things can be encompassed in that building when we get it up to current needs and we move the municipal court.
Now you mentioned convention center. And I understand the convention center is going to go into a
expansion mode.
Yeah. And there's supposed to be a hotel built right next to it.
Right.
What's the word on that?
Well, the university owns all of that property, and so the city is leasing the area where the convention center is. We've also annexed that area and where the hotel's going to go. And that allows us to collect the gross receipts tax on those areas, both in the construction and with any sales or services that happen in those areas. And the lodger's tax, which is important to us because the lodger's tax makes a lot of things that our Convention and Visitors Bureau, our Visit Las Cruces department do. So those are important to us, and the university has cooperated with us. So what we have heard from people who have not booked at our convention center is we don't have enough breakout spaces and we don't have a hotel next to the convention center. These are things that people look for. And in all fairness, originally a hotel was planned to be on the other side of Union from the convention center. That was going to go into a field there. And more recently, it's been moved from over to the east to the west.
West of the convention center.
Right, it'll be just across the irrigation ditch. And so in that location, we're going to be getting a courtyard, which is a Marriott hotel. And they're going to be building that. I got to see the plans. They look very nice. And it'll be immediately adjacent to the expanded convention center, which will be moving west, most likely towards the irrigation ditch. So that'll be an opportunity for us. The plans that I saw, and they're very preliminary on the convention center expansion, but the plans that I saw will include some more breakout rooms and some more exhibition space. So that will help in that area. And then I think the hotel's supposed to start next month.
Okay. Now that is, the convention center itself is in your district.
Yes.
District 2.
Correct.
What else can we expect to see in District 2 that we might not know about yet, but only you would know?
Well, actually, there are several projects already started. There's about a $4 million project that Memorial Medical Center is doing, an expansion there. And then I believe it's a $12 million apartment complex is going in just north and east of the Pan Am plaza. And so that will be mainly geared towards college students, university students. But those are two big building projects that are happening right now. The expansion, of course, of the convention center, but also we've got sort of a private project. Richard Pata, who has Spirit Winds, has taken up several properties on Harrelson and kind of doing a bohemian sort of area there where we're going to have places to go eat, art galleries, different things going on there. So that'll be exciting.
Excellent. Let's get to a few things going on this weekend. Noise is Off, which is a comedy play, opens. Oh, well, it opened last night, Friday night, at the Las Cruces Community Theater. Continues tonight and Sunday matinees for the next 3 weeks. Also, Crossroads City Derby, that's a roller derby. That's women's roller derby. That's tonight at Mearshide Center, 8 o'clock. Those girls really mix it up. And also tonight at the Rio Grande Theater, they're showing the classic film The Godfather, which is part of the classic film series. It's not actually part of it, but it's kicking off the upcoming classic film series at the Rio Grande Theater. We also sadly say goodbye to Glenn Campbell. Glenn's actually been to Las Cruces years ago, and it's one of the top country and western stars. He even had some crossover. So rest in peace, Glenn Campbell. Also tonight, Movies in the Park continues its summer run with the movie Sing. That's at Young Park, and also Music in the Park is tomorrow night, Sunday at Young Park as well. Tom Foster Wallace will be there. And in the morning, Sunday morning, we've got, there's a pancake breakfast at the American Legion, post 10, and that's at 1185 East Madrid. And it's a benefit to help the honor flight veterans who get sent to Washington, D.C. every year to look at the war memorials there. Many of them are still World War II veterans.
We had one this weekend at the City Council meeting.
Oh, that's right, he was awarded in honor. And of course, many Vietnam veterans can attend the Vietnam Memorial there in D.C. So we're almost out of time. I want to ask you one quick question.
Certainly.
Is downtown going to get some multi-tiered parking?
We're looking at that. I've been saying for years that we need it. The picture that you see on the screen is not what we're hoping to get. We probably have something a little bit shorter, but either wrapped with housing, residential, and perhaps some retail or some office space, or something designed so that it can be seen from the street and not look like a parking structure. I've also said that it really would make a lot of sense, since we have a lot of people saying, what if you don't actually need it after all in a few years, if we get enough people riding the buses or enough people walking or that kind of stuff. And I've said, well, then perhaps we should design it so that it's one level, or not one level, but each level is flat so that it can be converted at some later point. But it's definitely in the conversation at the moment. It's long overdue as far as I'm concerned, but we're getting there.
Okay, well, we are about out of time now. In fact, we are out of time, aren't we? And Greg, thanks for sitting in with
Absolutely.
us. I could
Thank
talk to you all afternoon. I've got 10 more questions I could easily ask you. But thanks for joining us, and thanks to everybody out there for joining us right here on Double Talk.